We walked in the delivery room not thinking anything would happen. I had a perfect pregnancy, no complications or anything. I was in labor for a pretty long time, about 36 hours from start to finish. But we started to notice that something may be wrong once I started pushing with him. I pushed for about 3.5 hours. So we thought that maybe he was, stuck or had, something wrong with the shoulder. Or we didn't really know what was going on. But when he was born, when he came out, his umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. It was loose, but we at the time thought that was what had happened. He was pretty much not moving. He wasn't crying. It looked like he wasn't breathing. I don't know if he was at the time or not. I know they run it's called an AFGAR test right whenever they're born, and his was extremely low. And he was immediately taken away to the NICU. At the time, we thought that he had HIE, which is a very serious brain injury. They were preparing us for the worst. But over the first couple of hours, they were running neurological tests on him and quickly realized that wasn't what he had. He was thankfully not as injured as an HIE patient would be. But he was having constant tremors. Newborns do weird tremor things, but we just knew that this was not that. When you would put your hand on him and he was shaking, it wouldn't stop when you put your hand on him. And so we just kept saying, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. So the next morning, a new NICU team came in, and the doctor that walked in, she immediately was like, we need to call Dell Children's seizures. So they brought the transport team in, took him, and my husband and I were still at the original hospital begging to get out to meet him up there. It was the worst drive of our lives. And so when we got there, he actually wasn't even in the NICU room yet. They took him directly to MRI whenever he got there, which I don't know if he's the first or one of the first patients at Dell that was ever taken to MRI prior to even being admitted so that they could come up with a course of action. And the reason that I think that that's important is because based on what they initially thought his brain injury was, the protocol for that is cooling. And so he was actually admitted to the room where they would cool them, which is where they don't put them in a coma, but they basically sedate them and they cool their whole body temperature down so that the brain injury can't spread. Well, in his case, if they would have done that, since he had the strokes, that could have caused worse damage. So I think that played a huge part in getting everything under control with him. And so they took him to the MRI, and then Dr. Ferrante met us, which is his neurologist, in the NICU room to tell us that they saw strokes on the MRI. They didn't know what had caused it. They didn't know when it had happened. But over the next couple of days, they did a study on my placenta. Seton Hayes had kept it and ran a study. And they think that my placenta got inflamed while I was in labor, and a small piece of it flaked off and went to his brain. It was a total freak accident. Nothing could have prevented it. We couldn't have known that it would happen. And thankfully, it's not something that would cause future strokes for him. So we felt good about the future, but we still had to figure out, how to get everything under control in the present. So we ended up staying in the NICU for 12 days, primarily to get his seizures under control. The first few days were awful. He had an EEG on the whole time. The seizures were consistent. They ended up intubate him because they had to put him on a medication that was so strong that it could stop his breathing. So I think that was the first 3 or 4 days we were dealing with that. And then the rest of the time, after we were able to get the seizures under control, it was mainly just weaning off of those medications. He woke up, had to learn to eat and do all those things before we could go home. And to be completely honest, we went home with the expectation that he'd probably be in a wheelchair, not live outside of our home. He has not had one singular deficit in his entire life. He's never been behind in anything. He's always been ahead. Stubborn, hard-headed little boy. And we strongly believe that if we wouldn't have ended up at Dell, that would be the case. We're very, very fortunate to have this totally healthy, normal toddler.